Still getting ready.
I think we're live.
Oh, sometimes it surprises me. So welcome everybody. I believe we're being redirected to YouTube. You're right. Welcome to Staying Sane, the podcast about not losing your mind in these crazy times, where we talk about hypnotherapy, hypnosis, and all things related. I'm with my co-host, Cassandra McLean, who, should I tell everybody what you were just doing?
What was I just doing? Having an amazing
Going
day
to
at
the beach?
I'm very
Enjoying
beach
yourself.
fresh.
Yes. And it looks
And
like
what
it
can
too.
we
Like
tell
you're
everybody
glowing.
what you were just doing, sir?
Okay, well, yeah, sure. I
Dive
just
right
got
in.
past. What's that? Sorry.
Let's dive right in.
Yeah, I just got back from MIT in Cambridge, which is actually Boston. It's a funny thing that people are like, "Where is MIT?" People are always like, "Where is Harvard?" It sounds like it's on top of a mountain somewhere in Greece. They're both basically suburbs of Boston, Massachusetts. So probably a lot of people know that, but a lot of people don't know that. So, okay, so yeah, I was at MIT. It was kind of a weird experience for me as a hypnotist to end up at MIT. I was at this crazy conference called the Human Augmentation Summit, where it was mostly technology. So people that were developing devices, sometimes like prosthetics, sometimes equipment that is meant to improve things like exoskeletons that make you stronger, and or devices that augment human life and human ability. And I think I was there because I've been raving about different things. But one of the things I rave about is that hypnotic trance is itself about human augmentation. I mean, what else is it about but human augmentation? And so my angle is that you don't need any brain computer interface. You don't need expensive technology. You just need trance. And what was interesting as a hypnotist, I was sort of placed there. I think people were skeptical because everybody else, like Stephen Wolfram was there speaking. So Stephen Wolfram, famous, incredible, both, I don't, it would be unfair to call him a computer science, but he's a genius in these affairs. He was there. There were other hotshots, people in the business of prosthetics and or human augmentation. And then there's Albert the hypnotist guy. And so some people were like, what is this? And not only that, wherever you go with hypnosis, as you know, it doesn't matter. There isn't a place on earth, it appears, where you can go and people are not skeptical. You know, they sort of believe, even at the hypnosis conferences, people are skeptical about whether hypnosis works. So anyways, the funny thing was, of course, they were very skeptical, but I was there. I've been on a crusade lately. Crusade, which I'm calling the mystery state. And it's because I believe
the mystery state crusade. Mystery state crusade. That's actually quite difficult to say.
Yeah, the mystery state crusade.
Okay.
And it's because I believe there is a state within hypnosis, but also within human consciousness, because not just in hypnosis, which is misunderstood, fairly unknown, and incredibly powerful. So the way I get to this, I can explain, it relates to what we would call somnambulant trance, which is the deep trance, or one of the deep trance within hypnosis. And that's what's intriguing about it, but it's not just somnambulant trance. So this is what I talked about. I asked the audience if they knew what some words meant, because they were big hot shots from Harvard and MIT. So I said, do you happen to know what the word atonia means? Does anyone in the audience know it? And there's a big audience, and they're like, one woman put up her hand. She said, I know what atonia means. So atonia, and this is very interesting.
Sister. One for the sisterhood. I'm sure that room was mostly men, and the woman knew it.
No men knew. There was not a single man who knew. But by the way, do you know what atonia is?
I know because you and I have discussed it.
Yes. So for our audience, atonia is when you fall asleep at night. What I often jokingly say to people, isn't it strange that you don't know what atonia is when you do it every night in the dark? Isn't that odd? And so my explanation is that atonia is when you dream at night, it requires REM state dreaming, you are paralyzed. Your body paralyzes you so that you don't act out your dreams. So the rare people who do act out their dreams are called somnambulants because they are sleepwalkers, and they will like do stuff related to what they are dreaming sometimes. So what's interesting about that is the limpness of the body is exactly similar to the limpness of the body in hypnotic trance, in deep hypnotic trance. This is important. So you might jump to conclusions and go, oh, is deep hypnotic trance a bit like REM state dreaming, given that that's what paralyzes the body? And I believe, and many people, I did a TEDx to this effect of, yes, of course, it is linked. It's the body borrowing one thing from another. But the third thing, which I then asked the audience another skill testing question is, sorry, go ahead.
I have so many responses, so I just want to know, should I save them all up or should we weave them in?
Let me just get to one point and then jump in.
Okay. I'm like choking back. So all right. Keep it going.
So then there are three states, it turns out, that are unknown, mysterious, improperly named, and the public is generally ignorant of them. So the first state is atonia, the fact that you're limp and paralyzed when you dream. The second state, called tonic immobility. So tonic immobility is kind of like fainting, or a better way of saying it would be if a lion suddenly appeared like right there or cornered me or cornered you, you would go into a freeze. If you can't run, you would just go into a freeze and you'd fall limp on the ground, because sometimes that will work as a last ditch effect to save your life. That state is different from atonia because you know what's going on. You still know the lion's there. You still are breathing and everything, and you're alert. You are full of cortisol and adrenaline. It is no fun. So that's the second paralyzed state. The third paralyzed state is somnambulant trance. And that's what I demonstrated in the audience. I said to the audience, if you don't believe me, why don't you come up on stage and I'll see if we can recreate this state that really has no proper name that you might call somnambulant trance. So then a bunch of people came up and I did what are called rapid or shock inductions on them fairly quickly. But the difference is, because it was MIT, I explained everything that I was doing. I said, this is why this rapid induction works. This is how it works. This is a shock induction. This is how it works. And then I dropped a bunch of people into trance. And I just demonstrated, look, these people are kind of like this. I just took their wrists and I showed, look, limp atonia. Atonia, what it literally means is no tone in the muscles. So no tension in the muscles. So I'm just going to close some programs so I'm not.
Okay.
So
I'm going to seize on my opportunity.
Yes, please do.
While you close out your tabs and save your bandwidth, as we should all be doing metaphorically,
Yeah, save your bandwidth
for what really matters. Don't be distracted. I'm really excited by a connection that I just had as you were sharing, because we've had this, we've talked about this topic before, but newly what I thought, the atonia state, would you call it atonic?
I think, yes. I mean, I think, look, I don't know it comes from Latin. I don't know how you're allowed to modify it, but yes, you would call it atonic.
The adjectival variation of atonia would be atonic.
Yeah.
Okay, doesn't matter. If the atonic state or the state of atonia is occurring when we're in REM state, so when the mind is dreaming, you're asleep, or really your body is asleep and your mind is doing something. Your conscious mind is not usually there. Only a sliver of lucky ducks and those who train themselves to be lucid dreamers can remain conscious and aware and have memory of dreams. Others, most of us, we're just kind of like oh, I kind of vaguely remember I had this dream. And if you don't write it down real fast or tell somebody, you know, the person sleeping next to you, you pretty much will lose it quickly. What the connection is that I'm drawing in this moment is that when we are deeply in trance, we are entering, depending on depth of trance, that body asleep, mind awake state. And what has come up for me is state dependent functioning or state dependent learning. Are you know about state dependent learning? And
I understand that to be within a certain state, you can do a certain kind of learning. Isn't that what it means?
It's sort of like how the way that we function, there's all kinds of like state dependent phenomena, which means like there's even state dependent memory, right? So a chronic drinker might remember something that they lost the last time they were drunk, but then when they're sober, they forget it and lose it again.
Yes.
Another
Totally.
example is it's quite a thing to be concerned about in schools because kids are only learning when they're on Adderall. There's this pharmacological state dependent learning.
And yeah, that makes sense.
Functioning.
It's also another example that when people get stoned and they brainstorm and they have really great ideas, and then then later on when they're not stoned, they're like, oh, I don't know if that was such a great idea. So that's state dependent inspiration. I'm not saying the idea
I think that for me, the state dependent inspiration would follow that when they're sober, they think, wow, that was a great idea. I need weed to be creative.
Yeah.
I require getting stoned or altering my consciousness to activate my creativity. But it's really because you've conditioned yourself that I need either this substance or this state of being or this environment. I only can do work when I sit down at this particular desk when the lights are just so, and that's where I focus. But if I go over to the kitchen, I just can't do work over there. I have to be at my work desk. That's a state dependent environment that's creating this learning phenomena. But it's not just the learning, it's the functionality or the retrieval of memories, things like that. So it follows then, perhaps logically, I'm just thinking here, that if our bodies have associated deep relaxation to the point of total limpness and even paralysis with this is the state that my body is in when my mind activates imagination and visualization and creativity to its highest power, when I am inducing hypnosis to that degree, we can really amplify.
It's worth asking why, and I could say this is why, meaning maybe you get a little bit imaginative, maybe your ideas get a little bit crazy, but if you are really limitless, that means you're physically moving. You're like people have dreams where they're flying and things like that. It requires you be paralyzed. Like in effect, the reason why it's important that you be paralyzed is that allows you to be limitless. If you're only semi-paralyzed, you can't be limitless because you are maybe semi-acting out your dreams. And so full paralysis actually creates more freedom because now you can do whatever. There are no limits. And that's why the state is so powerful. But just so you understand, modern psychology, what's significant here is modern psychology rejects this, meaning we can say that it sure looks like deep hypnotic trance is a lot like atonia in REM state sleep, but psychology does not agree. And that's one of the problems. It's a problem.
Well, what's their argument?
That if you just do scans of the brain, they're two very different things, meaning REM state dreaming and REM behavior hypnosis. Because when people are in trance, their eyes move back and forth just like they're dreaming, or flicker just like they're dreaming. Those you brain scans of those two activities, they look very different. But of course they do. No one's saying that they're the same. It's just that we know that the brain has the ability to borrow or reuse certain behaviors, and it's using the REM state dreaming aspect for similar purposes. So you can have unlimited imagination, so you can pursue unlimited activity the way you do when you dream. So
yes, a few interesting things that were coming to my mind. One is that the body is creating this physical paralysis, but those same neuroscientists, brain scanning people will tell you that when you, and you already know this, but for our audience, if I were to say to you, go practice shooting basketball every day for an hour, and then we'll see how much you improve. Then the second group is the controlled group. Just do nothing. We'll see how you are shooting baskets in a month from now. Don't shoot any except for after we do this test. Then that third group is told, just imagine for 1 hour a day, don't do anything, but imagine, really, really imagine, put yourself, you're on the court, you're practicing, you're playing, see yourself, you're shooting, it's going in the basket, you can feel your body. They give them this just imagine, but it's obviously, you know, self-hypnosis. And a month later, the people who've just imagined it, those neural pathways are the same. They are activating whether their body is still or whether their body is physically touching a basketball and shooting it on the hoop. The control group don't improve, but those other two groups both improve a lot.
I know. I know. It makes sense that it improves in sort of in ability and talent. Ever since you mentioned that, I've been thinking about it, and I thought about doing imaginary weightlifting, where you don't actually lift weights, but you just imagine that you are. And that I wonder if just by doing imaginary weightlifting, if you would experience muscle growth. And I think you would. I think it's sort of subtle. I think the truth is you shouldn't do imaginary weightlifting without doing some actual weightlifting too. But
yeah, that's how it works, is that you augment what you're doing. Physical, it's the augmentation, right? Which is what you were presenting on at MIT, which I'm so proud of you, my friend.
Thank you. I should tell you like what happened, because this is interesting. So basically I'm saying, look, atonia, hardly anybody knows what atonia is. 2, tonic immobility. So I mentioned this crazy thing, which is fascinating. Orcas, killer whales, have been filmed mostly in Costa Rica producing tonic immobility in great white sharks. So there's like an amazing video where there are photographs of basically big orcas taking on a very large shark, but they basically bang the shark upside down. And what happens is the shark goes into a tonic immobility freeze. And the shark is not technically injured. It's just frozen and it floats in the water. And I guess the orcas know so well how to do it that they know the shark is going to float there for 10 or 15 minutes, which is a bit like trance, where people go into trance for a little while. You don't have to do anything beyond a certain point. And then when they're ready, they eat the shark, because the shark is just floating there waiting for them to eat it. Doesn't fight back or anything. So this is freaky because, human beings, orcas, I made the case that orcas know more about tonic immobility than the average MIT student.
Clever.
So anyways, this actually, tonic immobility is also mind-blowing, because tonic immobility is a state that can be produced, and it has come up in the Harvey Weinstein trial and other trials, usually of women who've been sexually assaulted and have wondered, or the case was made that they did not resist. They didn't say anything. They didn't complain. They just lied there. And in some cases, it was advanced that it was very possible these women were in a state of tonic immobility. They'd been scared, intimidated, cornered. And the question is that possible? Well, now when you look at the orcas, and if you look, you don't have to go look that far into tonic immobility, and you realize it is true. It is very possible that women, particularly because women, as you know, are on average smaller than men, but if a woman was to be cornered aggressively or attacked by a man, she might, without meaning to, go into a state of tonic immobility. And this also could happen kind of accidentally. It could just happen in a kind of couple going out and getting drunk and then not knowing really what they're doing, and somebody could get sort of knocked into that state. Now, the reason why this is why I think this matters, I mentioned this casually. I have clients who are dealing with one way or the other with sexual assault. And one in particular immediately burst into tears. And the reason was that she was like, I have never thought about I have never realized that maybe there was a reason why I was so passive. She was sexually assaulted and she didn't respond and she didn't move and she didn't say anything. And this is a recurring theme often in these cases. So when you understand tonic immobility, you understand that is very possible. And what's important, this is why this is why people need to know about tonic immobility, because there are a lot of people who have been victimized or attacked, and they are carrying around guilt about their passivity because they think their passivity was conscious. They think that they were too scared or too cowardly or whatever it is to do anything, when in fact, like the big great white shark, which is not a chicken shit animal, they can be knocked into the state and then basically be stuck in it for a little while. And that's just the way it goes. So so this is why these three states, I'm getting to the third state, and I should probably just get there. So this is why tonic immobility is important. But tonic immobility is no fun. It's full of cortisol and adrenaline. People don't enjoy it. You would describe it as terrifying. Yet you are immobile and your body is limp the way it would be when you're sleeping. But this is why you want to make a distinction. The third state, so what I demonstrated at MIT was using classic hypnotic rapid inductions. You can take people and drop them into not atonia, not tonic immobility, but this third state. In hypnosis, this state is called somnambulism. But somnambulism is a misnomer. Even hypnotists, when they teach people about somnambulism, they'll say, well, it's a bit of a weird expression because it's based on the 19th century confusion between sleepwalking and hypnosis. Sleepwalking, which is somnambulism, and hypnosis, which is something else. So because of that, the expression got called somnambulistic trance. However, so it's not even a kind of well-named thing. The second thing is it is only named via hypnosis, meaning if I was to say to you, to a medical doctor, and I asked them to look at this person that I've got in trance who's limp and lying essentially in their chair, what state are they in? They would go, I don't know. I don't know what that state is.
Vocabulary for it.
There's no vocabulary. The vocabulary exists within hypnotic training, but it doesn't exist in medical science, and it certainly does not exist in public awareness.
Right. So you, Albert Nerenberg, are beginning to accept invitation into that world to start educating these doctors and scientists.
Well, I don't.
Damn right.
I wasn't. I mean, I want to educate people.
Yes.
Somnambulism is people.
Well, let me jump in, if I may.
Yes.
I think there's something very beautiful in what you say, and I always want to focus on what can I say or give or offer to anyone giving us their time right now that's immediately valuable or actionable. And the self-forgiveness, right? So you give a very concrete example of someone was raped, they became passive, and she then became full of guilt and shame that why did I act like that? And to say, hey, your physiology is wired in such a way that it's like a cheat code on Nintendo. It's just like A +1 boop, and it's just like something happens to the system.
Right. That's right. And it also, you might think there's a reason why, meaning even weirder, if you don't know what tonic immobility is, you might just think, well, this is me almost consenting because I'm not resisting. Yet,
right. But in that specific example, yes. And what I'm considering is that it can be broader and more generalized, that we can all be more forgiving and give ourselves grace, because whether it's that you've been activated into a somnambulistic trance or tonic immobility or something of that grand scale, or it's simply your unconscious programs are doing what unconscious programs do. And to acknowledge my unconscious programs are doing what unconscious programs do. My conscious mind is this part of me that wants to believe that I'm in control of things and that I control my temper. I would never say a harsh word to anybody or against anyone or anything. And then boom, you're triggered and you're just like, hey, fuck you, buddy. Right? That there's the similar mechanism of something unconscious that your conscious mind has not yet brought awareness to. And then from awareness, you can do something about it, like get hypnotherapy, begin practicing self-hypnosis, meditation, like breath work, find the thing that you like the best. But you can't beat yourself up over anything that's coming out of your unconscious programming, whether it's as extreme as the rape victim example or as trite as the guy who, you know, flips you off in traffic because he just can't take it anymore. But then he really is actually like a good guy who's doing his best. We all are. We're all these good people consciously doing our best. But some of us have more mountains of stuff that really needs to be dealt with at that subconscious level than others. So whatever it is, it's like, give yourself the grace, give yourself forgiveness, and just do the work to bring light and bring transformation. Get those unconscious programs brought to consciousness. Do work that can only really be done in trance. Your talk therapist is not going to get you here. Not for 20 years on that couch. You're not going to get a subconscious rewiring. Just you're not. You're not. So go find somebody who's qualified in trance work or hypnosis or hypnotherapy. And in one session, in a couple of hours, you can make a tweak. And now you're better. And then you go back in and you do another little tweak and you get even better. And then you're getting better and better and better. Gracefully. With self-acceptance, self-forgiveness.
I also think just awareness makes a big difference. Like, for example, so as you point out, there are a lot of situations where people might experience a kind of tonic immobility, like, for example, witnessing a car accident, or generally it's something shocking and traumatic, which a lot of us do experience. Now, what often happens is that people will punish themselves because they'll see a car accident or they'll see somebody in trouble and they won't do anything right away because they're in shock or they're in what you might call tonic immobility. And so that's the point, is that beating yourself up for something that happened instinctively. And there's also this belief that somehow it's a comment on your nature, meaning, oh, maybe you're some kind of coward because you didn't do anything. Well, no, it just can be wrong place at the wrong time. It could be the way you're built in a way. It's nothing that you control and you just respond that way. But that said, I actually think, because this is probably where we're going, is there a way to break these trances? Meaning, if you are watching an accident and if you are noticing that you're in a freeze, does that mean you have to stay in the freeze? And in fact, I think awareness makes a huge difference. It happened to me once. I was in a really crazy rainstorm, which is raining. It was very, very like aggressive rain. And because of that, there was terrible visibility. And I saw a woman get run over by an SUV. She just basically, SUV didn't see her, it was dark. And luckily it didn't hit her that hard, but she hit her head. It sort of banged into her and she flew back on the road and hit her head. And I remember, like, I'm in my car going the other way. And I remember thinking, hey, I just made this decision. Like, either I can't do anything or I'm like, she's going to be lying in a rainy street full of traffic on the ground. I should do something. And so, but I think it was because I was like aware that I was kind of freezing that I did do something. I just jumped out and somebody else did too. And we all stood around her so that there was literally there was a bus barreling down the road. And if we hadn't sort of waved it down, something could have happened. Anyways, and then we picked her up and got her off the street. But the point was, I don't think I have any special ability, but having the awareness that freezes happen,
yes,
is helpful.
Yes. And if awareness alone is, for some, it's enough. For some, it's like, what am I doing? And you just, you realize, what am I doing here? And you do something that your conscious mind would like you to be doing.
That's
but
literally
for others, it's not enough. And in that case, I would say a, trick of the trade that you can put in your pocket and use when you need it is, okay, I'm going to count to 3. And when I get to 3, I'm going to whatever. All right. And then in your mind, you count yourself 1, 2, 3. And on 3, you do it, whatever that thing is, whether it's run, whether it's wake up, whether it's call 911, whatever it might be. If you're in a state that you feel like I'm trapped in, but I'm aware that I want to be out of this, but I feel just a simple, okay, I'm going to count to 3. I know that I think Mel Robbins, who's a famous author and like coach person, She talks about
let
counting.
them.
Let them is a yeah, that's something she's famous for. But I've heard her speaking on podcasts about counting to three to, I think it was her, about counting to three to get out of bed in the morning. She's like, I love to lay in bed, and when I decide I'm going to get up, I say, all right, on three, I'm getting out of bed. It might have been Seth Godin. It was somebody that I respect and listen to.
I think it was Bruce Willis, actually. Bruce Willis in Die Hard. It's like 1, 2, 3, run. You know.
Well, lots of people are using it for lots of things, and you
Yeah.
can too. You can simply know that when you need to get yourself going, all right, on three, I'm doing it. And when three happens, you go.
Yeah. Yeah, I agree. That's why counting, people often have this sort of when they listen to hypnotic language, and they often wonder why is it so powerful to count down like 5, 4, 3, 2, 1. Actually, I don't know exactly the reason. It just is. It just is. I think it's because the brain tunes to the numbers and then it understands gradation, like a little bit of effort, a little bit more effort, and now we go for it, kind of thing. Yeah.
As a professional hypnotherapist, I can tell you that I'm always in my own practices, like consistently more and more impressed. Like, why is counting so good? It's like it gets more delicious the deeper I make my practices, where I just like, I could do to 20. Like, I'm gonna keep counting. I love counting. But I'll share as well for our audience. I
often say to people, I'm gonna give you a 20 count, like, because it's better than a 10 count.
Twice as good. It could well be. So let's just bring some attention to, we were saying you could count to 3 and then take action, or you could 5, 4, 3, 2, 1, go deeper and deeper in. And so that is a distinction that's worth drawing some attention to, that if you're coming up, you're activating a system, getting more energy, returning to consciousness, you want to count up. And if you're trying to go deeper and more relax, it's that descending out.
I want to maybe just, because to be clear, there's sort of a missing part of this that I should explain. That's important too. We've talked about these sort of 3 states: atonia, which is limp when you're asleep. There is tonic immobility, which is something shocking or violent or dramatic has taken place, and you freeze and you go into a kind of faint. And then there is somnambulant trance, which is deep trance in hypnosis, which has no proper definition or expression in medical science or even the popular imagination. But let me explain why somnambulance or trance is a different state altogether. So one, atonia, you have no control. You're asleep. 2, tonic immobility, you have no control, and it's no fun. It's full of stress and adrenaline. Hypnotic deep trance is a different game altogether. It is fun, and it is in the context of safety and play. So, for example, people often say to me when they see me do rapid or shock inductions on people, they're like, holy cow, you can just do that to people and make them and turn them into chickens or whatever. And I always explain, wait a second, hold on. I can't just usually just walk up to somebody at random and go, and now sleep, and then they go into a sleep trance or something like that. There's a big context. 1, we've all established we're doing hypnosis. 2, we have established that it's safe and it's relaxing, that people have consented, they've been tested, they've agreed to the process. Like, you see how many steps there are? A whole bunch of steps. And then I've also asked their permission if I can try these inductions on them. So there are so many steps that take place, but I think this is the key factor. It may be that this mystery state, somnambulance, whatever you want to call it, is also, in a sense, in a human behavior sense, a play state, meaning it's a more playful, deliberate state than the other ones. The other ones are for solving terrible problems or for sleeping. So because it's a play state, it actually explains a lot. Explains why it is fun. You can tell there's a thread running through hypnotherapy that there's some element of fun that's part of it. 2, it explains why it's been ignored, because there's kind of a black zone in psychology about anything that has to do with play, because conventionally people that were in the sciences thought like playful horsing around things were trivial, not to be examined, not to be studied. So
dumb. So dumb.
I like the way you said that. So dumb. So dumb. Yeah, exactly. Yeah, that's my take too.
You mean the number one state in which all children learn everything? We shouldn't bother with that.
That's right. Or the most, basically, I would say the most fun state in the world has been ignored because it's playful.
But play is a learning state. That's well
Yes,
established.
that's right. And you know the studies that show that unstructured play actually causes brain growth faster than any other form of play. So the wilder the play and the more unstructured, the better. But play also, as you pointed out, is creates brain growth and and learning dramatically fast. So yes. So this third state, which is somnambulant trance, is the doorway to amazing things. And I list them in my MIT presentation, which is one, restorative trance, meaning it may be just that you going into trance causes healing and restorative states similar to sleeping or dreaming. Second, imagination. It's a place where the imagination can run wild. You can imagine things that you can't normally imagine. Three, altered states. So this is something I do. So isn't it interesting that you can recreate altered psychedelic states? You can hypnotize people to be drunk, things like that, all doable within this state. Though this is not a subject of today's show, also hypnotic orgasms are part of this state. And the reason I just mention it is when people ask, like, how do you hypnotize people to have orgasms? You need, generally, as a rule, you need somnambulance. You can't just go, oh, are you in a light trance? Go ahead, have an orgasm. It won't work. So this is the magic state. This is the doorway through where amazing things take place. And this doorway has no name. It doesn't have a name. You can call it somnambulance. That's a misnomer. You can call it somnambulistic trance. It only exists within hypnotic language. And then you can call it atonia, but that would be wrong. So there's no name for it. So at my MIT talk, I asked the audience, what should we call this? Somebody said Nerenberg state. And I was like, no, I'm not that egotistical. But somebody else said hypnotronic state, which I actually kind of like, hypnotronic. But I don't think doesn't sound like a good medical term.
It's going to be difficult to penetrate those conventionally serious bubbles with that one.
It appears that your father has entered the hypnotronic state. So... Yeah. So
it's still unanswered.
Still unanswered. And so I think hypotonic is the closer expression. So that means that it is a hypnotically induced state of paralysis. Tonic, as in atonia, is probably the right term. And so the hypotonic state, I hope I'm saying it right.
You made it up, so you can't say it wrong since you're making the word up yourself.
From here on in, it shall be known as the hypotonic state. Anyways,
but you're using the prefix hypo as the counter of hyper.
Yeah, I'm trying to remember how I came to it. I might have to get back to you on that, but
okay,
it's something like that. Yeah, I'm going to look it up again, but it made sense. And I think that the point is, I mean, if any of our buddies watching this and they would like to name the state, they can too. At the end of my talk, I was going to do a game show called Name That State. And
the next conference.
Yeah.
It's a game for the next conference.
I can tell you a funny thing. So even I should have mentioned there's one other attribute of the state that people should know about. And that is, so famously, there's a cliche should know about, and that is in hypnotic trance where you turn people into chickens. And hypnotherapists often complain about this because they're like, how come when I tell people I'm doing hypnosis or hypnotherapy, they'll say, you're not going to turn me into a chicken, are you? And you have to explain, no, I won't do that. And, but it is a very common stage hypnosis trick, and there's a reason why it's done. So I explain this in my talk. The reason why you turn people into chickens isn't just because it's funny. it's also compelling. When you turn like a full-size person into a giant chicken, it is dramatic for the audience. They're like, holy cow, that person really thinks they're a chicken. And so I go, well, why? Why? Because there's even a second part to this story that is mysterious. And let me explain what it is. When somebody is turned into a chicken in hypnotic trance, it requires a deep trance. They must be in deep trance. And they must be in somnambulant trance, again, a misnomer of a term, but the best we've got. And when somebody's in, one of the markers of somnambulant trance is people believe the trance. So if you are in, so in later states of trance, you don't. I can say, imagine you're on a boat. Well, you know, if it's light trance, you can imagine you're on a boat, you might feel it, but you know that you're not on a boat, you're sitting in a chair or whatever it is. But in somnambulant trance, I say, you are a chicken, and you don't know that you're not a chicken. You are a chicken. And that's why it's so funny. The audience is like will always like fall over itself laughing. But again, there's no scientific explanation for this. The best is within hypnosis, we call it positive hallucination, where the person believes the hallucination that they are a chicken. But I have a better term for it. I call it the hypnotic credulity hypothesis, which is the idea that you're deep enough that you fully believe in the hypnotic suggestion. And that only occurs, so the reason why I think this is so important is it only occurs when you get to this state of trance, this deep enough state, which has no name, which is why it's so confusing, which is why like nobody has heard of it before.
They've called it the Elman state, I've heard, no?
Or right, or as no, but those are different things, like Elman state, Esdale state.
That's correct.
Yeah, Esdale state, but that's particularly good for pain relief. But the point is that even the Esdale state is just a very, very, very deep state of trance.
Mm-hmm.
But it is like another game, and also like there is a phenomenon of medical hypnosis where they might use some of this terminology. But again, why doesn't the public, like, these are things that happen to everybody. You know, almost everybody can achieve at some point in some way somnambulant trance, or knows somebody that can. Why doesn't the public know about it?
Well, we're informing them here on the Staying Sane podcast. We have this career mission to bring hypnosis and hypnotherapy to the mainstream, to better educate the public, our clients, our friends, and anybody who's interested in these topics. So do come back and watch our podcast next week.
Where you're here, I'm going to say you heard it here first. And you really did hear it here first. You really did. Maybe not always for good reasons. Yeah. Yeah. Amazing. All right. Well, thank you. Those were excellent questions. I'm really glad I've been able to talk about it. As this proceeds, I think maybe by next week, we will have a name for the state. I'm doing another event in New York. So maybe there I'll try to name the state, having a game show. And yeah, so if anybody has a good name for the state, please post it below. And yeah, I think great to see you. Glad that you had a nice time at the beach today.
Thank you. It was a lovely day.
That could be a state too. Yeah.
Anybody wanting to do hypnotherapy with me, you can find me on McLeanhypnotherapy.com.
Right. Yes, and feel free to get in touch with me as well. Thank you. Thank you. My adventure. And we'll